Most men wander through life with their palms open and their hearts exposed, believing that respect is harvested through softness, through generosity, emotional transparency, constant availability, and the naive belief that being understood is the same as being valued. They confuse vulnerability with virtue, openness with importance, and in that confusion they negotiate away the very leverage their existence depends on. They think acceptance is the path to safety, that safety is the path to belonging, and that belonging is the path to power. But nothing could be further from the truth. Safety is not a gift. It is a negotiation conducted through presence, pressure, and perception. Respect is not granted because you are nice. It is granted because you are not fully accessible. The harsh truth is the one most men spend their lives trying not to hear. People do not respect what is freely given. They respect what is withheld, what must be earned, what sits just beyond reach. When something is easy to access, easy to decode, or easy to possess, it loses its gravity, and so do you. People guard what cost them effort. They value what resisted them. A lover whose time is rare becomes unforgettable. A friend who listens with restraint becomes wise. A leader who speaks with calculated brevity becomes feared. When you are always available, always giving, always present, you teach others that your presence has no price, that your energy requires no sacrifice, that your time holds no scarcity. You become predictable, and the predictable becomes invisible. You become ordinary, and the ordinary is disposable. To withhold is not cruelty, it is awareness. It is the understanding that your time, your attention, your emotion, they are currencies, and currencies spent without calculation bankrupt a man long before anyone notices his collapse. There is power in mystery, gravity in silence, and a ruthless force in scarcity. The man who rarely speaks is heard when he finally does. The man who appears sparingly becomes desired in his absence. The man who gives selectively is remembered more than the man who gives endlessly. You do not chase respect. You command it by becoming deliberate. Your silence becomes louder than your words. Your absence becomes heavier than your presence. And those who orbit you will always lean closer to what they cannot fully grasp. Yet withholding is only one blade in your armory. The other is revelation, precise, calculated, controlled. Never show your full strength. Show only enough to imply more. Restraint is more terrifying than disclosure, because power restrained becomes speculation, suspense, unease. The world does not fear what it can measure, it fears what it cannot predict. When you display everything, when you reveal your entire capacity, you become legible, an equation someone can solve. And what can be solved can be surpassed. Real power lies in unpredictability, in being the storm felt across the horizon, even when no thunder falls. Let others wonder about the depth you never reveal. Let them hesitate in your presence, unsure if they stand before calm or the edge of catastrophe. The fighter who trains in silence, the strategist who smiles without explaining, the man who listens without reacting. These are the ones who rule without speaking, because ruling is not domination. It is becoming the axis others are forced to calculate around. Influence begins with expression, but it is perfected in control. Emotional discipline is the new battlefield. Control of desire is control of loyalty. He who cares less controls the dynamic. This is a law older than war. Every relationship is a balance of investment. One gives more, one waits longer. One fears losing, one decides when the game ends. Most men lose their power because they reveal too much too soon, confusing emotional exposure for strength. They speak quickly, they confess deeply, they reveal their intentions without strategy, and in doing so, they hand over the advantage. Emotional distance is not cruelty, it is precision. It is offering enough of yourself to build connection, but not enough to depend on the response. You do not need to say you care less. Silence already implies it. You answer slower, you react calmer, you observe longer. Your restraint becomes their fascination, your silence becomes their puzzle, your lack of reaction becomes their obsession. They begin to wonder what you feel, not because you told them, but because you didn't. In wondering, they reveal themselves. They expose their need, their longing, their anxiety. You do not need to dominate them. You need only remain unmoved. Closeness does not build loyalty. Scarcity does. When your presence is rare, its arrival becomes powerful. When your approval must be earned, it becomes a prize. People fear losing what they do not fully possess, and the more certain someone is of your affection, the less they value it. Familiarity kills reverence, consistency kills mystique. It is not love that sustains influence. It is distance wrapped in the illusion of availability. This illusion is essential. Appear friendly, but never trust warmth. The world is not divided into good intentions and bad. It is divided into players and those being played. Warmth is a tactic. A smile is a mask. Friendliness invites connection while concealing agenda. Many people smile not from affection, but from strategy, from the desire to be seen in a favorable light. Sincerity is rare, performance is common. Learn the difference. Trust patterns, not proclamations. Not comp. Anyone can be kind once. Anyone can pretend when watched, but patterns reveal truth. Observe who they are in the shadows, not under your gaze. Do not become bitter, become sharp. Friendliness is a key. Only a fool treats it as a guarantee. Listen often, speak little, offer value, but never dependency. Let others approach, but never let them close enough to wound you. Never confuse kindness for allegiance. Never confuse praise for loyalty. And the closer someone appears, the more cautiously you must watch. Warmth is surface. Naive men assume it has depth. Eventually, someone will try to test you, push past your boundaries, mistake your silence for submission. When that moment comes, you must teach the cost, not with argument, not with explanation. Those belong to the weak. But with consequence. Punish once, punish decisively. Boundaries unenforced cease to exist. Warnings unbacked become jokes. Correct, not gradually, but absolutely. Your standards are not negotiable. They are law, and law once broken brings judgment, not dialogue. Punishment must be structural, not emotional. It is not about anger, it is about precedent. Strike with clarity. No theatrics, no remorse, no second explanation. Deliver the consequence and return to silence. That silence becomes legend after one decisive act. People adjust. They shift in your presence, cautious where they were once careless. That is the power of one final blow. It ends the debate forever. To punish without emotion is to terrify, because you reveal you are not driven by hurt but by principle. You are not reacting, you are correcting reality, and once corrected, it stays corrected. After the strike, you do not revisit the conversation. You do not reopen the wound. Silence speaks the final truth. It will not happen twice. And that is when you unlock the deeper law, the law of dominance through silence. Influence does not require noise. It does not require argument. Real influence bends the world without lifting a finger. Silence becomes pressure. Stillness becomes authority. The moment you explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you trade strength for weakness. The moment you defend your character, you validate their judgment. But the man who holds silence forces others to reveal themselves. They speak more, justify more, expose more until their words become their undoing. The strongest men do not speak often. Their presence rearranges the atmosphere. Their silence creates gravity. People shape their tone around that gravity. They adjust not because you asked, but because the energy demands it. Influence is not earned through rebuttal. It is earned when the idea of opposing you feels like a loss before the conflict begins. Right 4, right 104. Let others rant, let them explain, let them raise their voices, you remain still. They begin to question themselves. They begin to wonder why you do not react. They begin to seek validation from your calm, and when they do not receive it, they realize your approval has become the treasure. But presence is only half the empire. Authority must outlive your absence. Influence that dissolves when you leave the room is not influence, it is theatrics. Real power persists in the mind of others through reputation, the shadow that walks ahead of you, opening doors before you arrive. Reputation is the echo of discipline, built not on your best days, but on the moments when pressure is high and no one is watching. Decide who you want to be known as and live it without contradiction. If you want reliability, stay calm in panic. If you want fear, stay unmoved in provocation. If you want respect, speak less and act more. Weak men crave validation through noise. Strong men let silence do the lifting. Reputation becomes a second self. But once cracked, it is almost impossible to rebuild. One moment of inconsistency can fracture what years of discipline created. You cannot afford the luxury of being liked. You cannot chase the warmth of temporary approval. Morality taught by the masses is a leash disguised as virtue. And when forced to choose between moral appearance and strategic advantage, choose power. Because morality bends, power endures. Morality is convenience, power is timeless. Most men cling to the illusion of righteousness while being quietly ruled by those who abandoned it. To foreign, is this right? And stop asking, is this right by their rules? Start asking, does this strengthen my position? If yes, it is wise. If not, it is noise. And all noise leads to ruin. You can be kind, but never at the cost of your trajectory. You can be generous, but only when the return strengthens your position. Every choice is an equation. Every action is an investment. Morality serves you only when it serves your outcome. A moral decision that weakens you is not noble. It is self-inflicted sabotage. A strategic decision that elevates your control is not wicked. It is intelligent. History does not remember men for their obedience to collective codes. It remembers those who rewrote the codes, broke the frames, reshaped the rules. Morality whispers to you in moments where power demands you roar. Yet those who mock your ruthlessness today will call it wisdom tomorrow, because the world does not respect compliance, respects clarity. It respects men who refuse to shrink for applause, who refuse sacrifice without gain, who refuse to apologize for ascending. Understand this, power is not real unless others believe in it. Influence is perception that eventually becomes reality. People follow whom they believe others are following. They respect whom they believe others respect. Perception shapes loyalty more than truth ever will. This is why powerful men never try to prove anything. Proof is for the insecure, presence is for the sovereign. Real authority steps into a room as though it already owns the space. It speaks softly because silence carries farther than noise. It moves slowly because intention bends attention. The man who remains calm under pressure creates pressure in others. They begin to assume he knows something they do not. They begin to calculate, adjust, shrink, reorganize themselves around his gravity. In that recalibration, they expose their uncertainty. You do not need to dominate them. You only need to remain sovereign over yourself. When you master that, others begin speaking more carefully in your presence. They shift their tone, they regulate their energy. They orbit you rather than stand beside you. This is influence, not the power to force movement, but the power that makes people move themselves. But this is where most men fall, not from weakness, but from the temptation of being adored. The trap of being loved destroys more men than conflict ever could. Many begin disciplined, cold, calculated, until they are seen, admired, desired. Then they soften. They become available, predictable, legible. And what becomes legible becomes manageable. To be loved is to be interpreted, and interpretation kills mystique. A man who needs love fears disappointing others. He moderates his truth, restrains his fire, shapes himself according to emotional demands. He becomes a mirror, not a force. Dependency is born, and dependency is the death of power. Love is not the goal, reverence is. Affection fades. Respect endures. The powerful man does not chase love. He receives it as tribute, never as nourishment. He does not require it to function. He does not negotiate his identity to keep it. If love is lost because he stayed true to himself, then it was not love, it was manipulation dressed in warmth. The deadliest test is not adversity, it is affection. Adversity sharpens, affection, when craved, dissolves. It melts the structure of a man until he becomes foam, pleasant, shapeless, forgettable. The world bends to those unmoved by praise. Your strength is measured not by how you respond to hostility, but by how you resist applause. When the need to be liked infects you, you have already lost altitude. A man of command chooses solitude over comfort. He stands apart not because he cannot belong, but because he refuses to shrink to fit. He is not leaned upon, he is reached for, and reaching preserves distance, and distance sustains power. People do not fear losing what they own, they fear losing what they cannot fully grasp. Eventually, every man walking the path of power faces a moment. Keep the bonds that no longer serve you or cut them cleanly. Loyalty is precious but not eternal. It aspires. Weak men fail to recognize when it does. And those who do not recognize it rot inside betrayals they were too sentimental to commit. When betrayal becomes necessary, it must be swift, silent, and final. If you must betray, betray once and never twice. Do not stagger into it. Do not explain. Do not soften. The hesitation is the cruelty. It is not betrayal that wounds. It is the prolonged tension of pretending loyalty still exists. A clean cut is mercy. A lingering departure is poison. Most men try to soften the edge. They leave doors open. They hope to be liked by those they've outgrown. But a softened betrayal becomes a prolonged execution. Betray once and vanish. Never return. The second betrayal is not betrayal, it is suicide. When you return to someone you have already removed, you hand them a map of your weaknesses. They may forgive, they may smile, they may embrace you, but they will wait. People observe, and they may respond when you least expect it. Those who understand your patterns are more challenging than those who act without insight. Influence belongs to those who move deliberately and without hesitation. When you step away, your actions should convey clarity and purpose. This was intentional, measured, and necessary. Absence shifts perception, prompting others to reflect on your contributions and recalibrate their assumptions. Influence diminishes when predictability replaces uncertainty. Familiarity reduces impact. When others can anticipate your behavior, they stop valuing your judgment and fail to recognize your significance. Therefore, you must create distance not when you are overlooked, but when you are most noticed. To step back is not retreat. It is refinement. Absence encourages reflection, reinterpretation, and recognition. Those who leave space become memorable, their presence understood through absence rather than constant visibility. Mastering this requires composure, the ability to allow others to wonder, to leave impressions uncorrected, and to resist the urge to remain constantly present. Step away when attention is at its height, not when it fades. This is how influence persists. This is how reputation To withdraw thoughtfully is to demonstrate autonomy. I act on my terms, not to satisfy others. The world remembers the impact of absence longer than continuous presence. If you withdrew today, who would notice? Who would pause before acting? Who would reconsider because of your absence? Influence is defined not by the number observing you, but by the awareness your absence creates. The world is guided not solely by fairness, kindness, or virtue, but by perception, awareness, and presence. Those who deny this are constrained by it. Those who embrace it guide outcomes. These principles are not for the agreeable or sentimental. They are for the discerning, for those who understand the difference between being liked and being respected, between being noticed and being remembered, between being appreciated and being influenced. If these ideas resonate, you are already moving intentionally, strategically, and consistently. You do not need validation or applause. You need only to act with such purpose that the environment adjusts around your presence. Influence comes not from asking or seeking approval, but from becoming someone who is composed, self-reliant, and deliberate. The individual who commands attention through calmness, earns respect through consistency, and shapes circumstances through mindful absence, establishes lasting impact. You are not here merely to be present. You are here to be remembered, to leave before your influence can be categorized, to maintain integrity without compromise, to rise above distractions because you are guided by purpose rather than reaction. Influence is constructed not in constant activity, but through measured restraint, not through impulsive response, but through control, not through mere visibility, but through the lasting impression of thoughtfully timed absence. Those who master the art of withdrawal before predictability achieve a lasting effect, and in that persistent recognition their influence endures.